Hello, YouTube. This is Insane Monster doing part 2 of What If Asta Had Crona's Powers, and Happy Halloween. Now then, when we last left off, Asta got his anti-magic grimoire and has been training with it and such. And with that all, considering this is only the second part, we don't really need much of a recap. So, do enjoy the video and hit it. Alright, now then, when we last left off, they were just leaving Ha's village. And on the way there, they do talk a little bit. There was even a little moment where Yuno was just staring at Ragnarok eating, along with Asta. He was just staring at him with Ragnarok stating, "The hell are you looking at?" Asta looks at Yuno, curious about what he might say, with stating, "How exactly is it that you can eat Ragnarok? I mean, you're his blood. How does that work?" Asta looks at Ragnarok and vice versa, and they just shrug their shoulders, with Ragnarok stating, "I just do. All I know that is breaks down and helps his body get strong. Or, I don't know, the whole thing about it. I just like to eat stuff every now and then. Is that too much to ask?" It's just having a blank face, looking at him, stating, "I guess not." So yeah, they end up going to the Magic Knight exam. He gets in just fine. Doesn't have any birds around him. As for Asta, only Nero is around him. But when anti-birds go to near Asta, well, the normal anti-birds, except for Nero, who's just sitting on top of his head, when they fly near Asta, they have a very odd reaction. They, with the conflicting soul lane, wait, soul wavelengths of both Ragnarok and Asta, they end up panicking and freaking out, flying frantically around. And people are taking notice of this, where any anti-bird that goes near Asta just freaks out and then just goes crazy. So he tries to get away, bumping into Yami like normal, with Yami grabbing his head, asking if he wants to die, going as far as lifting him up by, by gripping his skull. But Asta isn't really fazed by this. His hardened blood is keeping them from feeling any pain and such. As Yami then kind of looks at him strangely and asks, "The hell are you, kid?" Asta looks at him, asking, "What do you mean?" Yami states, "Why is it that it's like I'm holding two individuals instead of one in my hands?" Asta gets surprised by this, with Ragnarok inside of Asta stating, "The hell's up with this guy? We don't have magic. He shouldn't be able to sense us, right?" It really doesn't make any sense, does it? Asta grabs Yami's arm, trying to get him to let go, where Yami realizes how freakishly strong this kid is. Pharaoh comes over, telling him to stop messing with the examinees and that it's about to start. Yami gripes at him, saying, "Fine," releasing Asta. As Yami looks at his arm, looking at the bruises left, thinking, the kid is pretty strong and really odd. As he smirks, thinking, this exam might be interesting. As then we go back to Asta communicating with Ragnarok secretly inside of him as they talk, remarking that with Ragnarok stating that the Azam is probably going to be a combination of basic skills as well as combat skills. So we should be good if we use black blood abilities in order to get through them. Asta agrees with him, stating that it's probably the simplest thing to do. As the exam starts, we see Captain Vengeance and such, as Captain Vengeance gives everybody a broom. Asta just drops the broom, with everybody looking at him, wondering if he's just giving up. Though black wings just shoot out of his back as he uses them to fly. Now, then, this might be odd for those who've watched the anime of Soul Eater, but remember, this is based off of manga crona. The powers has developed quite a bit in the manga in a number of ways. So, we're not getting to like the point where crona ends up running into the Kisen of the manga. It's not at that point of power for crona. And you know what I mean about the aftermath of that encounter. If you read the manga, I'll leave a link in the description below. Now then, back on topic, we then see that everybody is staring at Asta having these odd looking black wings helping him fly around. As the exam is over, well, that portion of the exam is over, one of the captains asked what kind of magic Asta uses. This was Rill, who was really interested in it, since it looked like it was liquid and then it turned into those wings. Asta scratched his head, thinking, and just figured he should just say, well, I use black blood magic. This takes some people by surprise, wondering what exactly is black blood magic. They've heard about blood magic from what they know about the Queen of the Witches Forest, though they never heard of anything called black blood magic. But the exams still go on. Now then, we get to the targeting phase. For this portion, Asta decides to use the black blood lance, which is basically a giant cone spike that is fired at a target. This takes out a number of targets, and a portion, well, one of the more upper portions of the arena gets completely shattered apart. This surprises the nobles and royals, thinking that he's powerful for not even using his grimoire. As we see some of them getting annoyed by this, ended up being sewn up by this commoner. Next, we get to the creation portion. This part, Asta sticks out his hand as the black blood emerges from his palm with an opening. The black blood begins to form black blood briars, even going as far as to make roses out of it. Thinking it seems like a good choice, considering it's probably his most, I guess the correct term would be aesthetic looking uh, form of his abilities. So yeah, as the captains converse with one another about the examinees, we hear uh, Flagolion talk to Nozel, stating that black blood power seems to be very useful, taking whichever form he desires. Quite similar to your Mercury magic, wouldn't you say? Nozel just scoffs at this, but is fully aware that is pretty alike. considering he can control his mercury magic to form all kinds of things he needs. Next, we get to the combat portion. Asta ends up being paired up with a royal of the Silva House who uses uh, iron magic. So, yeah, right off the gate in the fight, the royal uses sword, basically making swords and launching them at Asta. Asta just puts his hands in his pocket and takes it. When people start freaking out, thinking that this kid just let himself get impaled, they then realize that the swords aren't even piercing him. They aren't going into his body like they should. The, no, sorry. Yeah. The royal happens to be not is completely confused by this as he yells, "The hell? How are you doing that?" Asta just smirks as he takes one hand, grabbing one of the swords and snapping it in half, doing the same with the others one by one while the royal is trying to push as hard as he can with those swords to pierce him. As Asta explains that his black blood ability magic allows him to harden his blood, which can act as a good shield from piercing attacks like this. You aren't going to really get far into my body with bladed weapons, as he breaks the final sword and begins to walk towards him. The next thing we see is that the royal uses his magic to create a giant golem armor set around him, attacking Asta full force. Asta is able to block it with his arm just one-handedly and such, as he also begins to state that the black blood can also act as great support for boosting his strength, as then black blood begins to form around his hand and then swirling, creating a blood sword, as Asta cleanly cuts off the arm of the iron armor golem that's the royal is inside, causing the royal to back up, freaking at this. He then yells out that that's enough, fixing the arm and then creating an entire arsenal of weapons, yelling out, "One of these has to work on you." Even going as far as creating a giant drill lance, hoping that it could, if he can't pierce him, he can at least drill through him. As the weapons go towards him, the typical weapons don't really do anything to him. He's able to resist it from piercing him through. As for the drill, Asta smirks, thinking, "Alright, I'll show you what I can really do if you're that eager," as the drill goes through Asta, though there wasn't any blood spill, just an odd hole. More than that, Asta's body was starting to turn black. It even started to move around like a liquid, as Asta then quickly goes around to behind the no, the royal, who is starting to freak. Asta taking out his anti-magic sword, destroying the armored golem that's protecting the royal. He then panics, creating some iron soldiers to fight Asta. So Asta extends his hand and sends out the snakes that he has on his body to tear them up. The royal tries to go for a big attack, firing it at Asta, but Asta just blitzed him. This attack he launched fired multiple giant cannonballs, as Asta takes the Demon Slayer sword in one hand and his Black Blood sword in the other, using scream resonance. This ultimately caused the sound to go and be heard throughout the entire capital, even shattering all the glass and windows. He was able to focus the sound to a fine target, causing the royal to get a little bit of tinnitus, I guess, as he tries to keep himself from going completely unconscious. Asta takes on the multi-fired attacks, not just with the Demon Slayer sword and the Blood sword in his other hand, but he sprouts Ragnarok's arms from his shoulders, each holding their own black blade, being vibrated by the sonic ability of Ragnarok and Asta's soul resonance, or screech resonance as it happens. While the blood sword slice the royals attack in half, the anti-magic sword completely destroys the attack it cuts through. Going straight for the royal, he slams him with the flat of the blade, sending him into the wall, as the match is stated as over. And the matches are on halt because everybody needs their ears checked, because they are severely ringing. After that, the things go as in canon with the rest of the battles, including and we get to the Magic Knight selection. So, unlike in canon, Asta does get a couple more hands from Rill, Jack, who, by the way, finds it really interesting that he turned his body into into his magic itself. And yes, Crona in the manga can do that. He's able to turn his body into black blood. So, as he looks, his eye catches Captain Yami. He finds it curious how he knew somehow that there was two people inside of him. So, he just smirks and decides to go with the Black Bull, stating that it's instinct. Plus, he's has kind of a liking because he can sense people's souls, such. He can tell. Yami has an odd, seems kind of odd, but he has a good soul. While that Jack guy just full on has some kind of murderous intent oozing from him. And Rill did spacey. So, as they leave to go to the Black Bull's hideout, and Asta say goodbye to one another. As they then walk up to the Black Bull's hideout, and Asta opens the door. Like in canon, he just sees the Black Bulls being completely insane, as one of Magnus' fireballs, as he was fighting Luck for eating his food, went toward Asta. Asta easily enough created a black blood barrier to stop it. So, after Yami yelled, breaking a wall, commanding them to calm down, they introduced their new member. So, yeah. As the physical portion and such of the baptism went as in canon, if not better for Asta, considering his hardened blood, he full on shattered that boulder with a single headbutt. So, yeah. Next was the magic portion. But Asta was told by Yami to use his actual power. Asta was a bit nervous, and Yami knew he was holding back considering the key he was giving off during the exam. As Asta sighs, remarking, "Alright," he pulls out the anti-magic sword, and from his back, Ragnarok comes out, with Magna yelling out, "The hell is that?" Asta remarks that this is Ragnarok. "I guess you can say I actually have living blood. So, well, living black blood." As Ragnarok states, "Yep, that's basically the most accurate way to state it. I'm his blood and I'm fully alive." As he's just kind of using his Asta's head as an armrest, with Asta poking Ragnarok with the sword, telling him to stop that. Ragnarok just says, "Fine, let's just get this over with," as he turns into a black blood blade. They do low key sonic vibrations so that they don't destroy the windows of their new home or bust the eardrums of their new comrades, but still having the hyper vibration function to increase Ragnarok's blade's cutting power. So he does end up dodging the fireballs as well as ending up cutting through a couple of them, though they do end up scattering, and he ends up using some of his blood to create shields. Yami's impressed by Asa's capabilities for not just offense abilities, defense abilities, but for also being well rounded for close range, mid range, and not to mention long range when he thinks of that black blood lance you did during the exam. So he's curious about what kind of limits there might be in his power. So there's that. As Magna then fires up all of the magic he can muster to fire directly at Asta. He gets ready, trying to think, but his body just reacts on its own instead of thinking. Ragnarok sees this and just lets it happen, thinking something interesting might happen. And, like in canon, the fireball is sent back to Magna, who dispels it before it could kill him, with Magna yelling at Asta saying he's incredible, and they do get along like in canon, with Asta scratching the back of his head, stating that he doesn't have any magic. Magna and the others are surprised by this, asking, "Then what's with that? You called it Ragnarok, right?" Asta said, "Yeah, well, I've had him for as long as I can remember, I guess. He's just a part of me, though I don't have magic." Ragnarok showed up again, sticking out of his back, stating that that's actually all true. You guys produce power from your bodies, which is mana and magic. So that's that. This little runt doesn't have any mana. But with me working together with him, we can use our own souls as a power source, using something called soul resonance. More or less, it's as if we use our souls in tandem to create incredible power. That's how we did that little stunt to ring all your ears at the exam, with Yami having a that annoyed little vein thing that happened in anime, stating, "Oh yeah, I remember that. My ears were ringing so loud, and you broke all of the glass in the Capitol." As then we just see him laughing as he realized that he destroyed all the windows in the Capitol. As we then go to a clip where the Clover King is just looking at all the broken glass in his throne room as it's getting swept up, as he yells, "How did this happen?" And we switch back as he gets his Black Bull's robe as well as the headband edition with the Black Bull's mark. Asta smirks, looking at Ragnarok, asking, "How does he look?" Ragnarok looked at Asta, remarking, "Better than you usually do, I guess. A bit more, maybe official." With Asta looking at him, saying, "What, you thought I looked bad before?" With Ragnarok saying, just kind of going, "Nah." Next thing we know, Ragnarok and Asta are yanking on each other's faces again as they're complaining about one another. Asta saying, "Why is it that my own blood is so annoying?" But Ragnarok stating, "Why do I have to be the blood of somebody so annoying?" With the Black Bulls just laughing hysterically at this madness. As Noelle looks down and sees this, she's not sure what to think. And this is where we'll be ending this part of the What If. Hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, remember to hit the notification bell and set it to all so that you're properly updated for when the next What If comes out. With all that said, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and see you later.